if you really want to make it in life, you can't think inside the box. You have to always think outside the box, because whoever thinks inside the box, they get trapped there.
We're back with another episode 6 of the Black is the New Rich podcast. I'm here with a very, very special guest, Stefan, aka the visual artist. He's into a multitude of things, and we're going to get into it one by one. I know I introduced you, but you can go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I'm the visual artist. I'm a content creator, I guess, real estate investor and stock investor. That would probably be my best introduction for you.
I bet. So I'm going to get right into it. So right now you're a photographer and videographer.
Yep.
Right? You own 2 homes.
Yep.
You're into stocks.
Yep.
So you have the whole, and you still have your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So you have your whole wealth circle going.
Yeah, I guess they call it the wealth triangle. So I guess I do sort of have that going into a certain way. I guess we can go through it, but I guess there's a story about how I got to each one of them.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's exactly what we're gonna do. Let's go some years back. How old were you when you got your first home?
First home was 22 years old. So basically, what had happened, just to go way back then.
Yeah, we're gonna take it back.
I was in college at the time, and I was taking a course. And then I sort of realized that nobody was really making money from degrees at the time.
Yeah.
So I decided, I don't know if this is really,
Where'd you go?
I went to Guelph, and then I went to Humber.
Okay.
So I took 2 different programs. My first program was economics in Guelph. I guess that might have been the right program. Yeah. But I dropped out of that, and then I went to Humber for health and fitness at the time. So what I then noticed was, I was talking to different people who graduated. Nobody was really making money from getting a degree. So at the time I was working as a summer student at my 9 to 5 job, which was Chrysler. And I sort of thought, okay, this is actually really well paying. So they were hiring full time. So I decided to take on that job full time and quit school. But I had a plan at the time, was to invest that money. Okay. Because I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is the infamous Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I read that book, and about 6 to 8 months after going there full time, I then decided to purchase my first property.
Okay, let's get into that. So you purchase you drop out.
Yeah.
You drop out technically, right?
Dropped out, yeah.
Yeah. You get a job at Chrysler, and then you know what? You're gonna make your first purchase. That down payment, how does that come about such a young age?
Okay, so what I did was I got into pre-construction. So pre-construction is a great way to leverage money and time at the same moment.
Break it down. How does it work exactly?
Okay, so if you get a condo at the time, I think it was about 250,000.
Yeah, fuck. What area?
I know, right? 250,000. So they'll say, hey, put down 10%. They'll say, no, put down, let's say a $5,000 deposit, 30 days. It might be 5%. Can't really do the math off the quick top of my head. I think that's 12,500.
Okay.
So, and I think then they'll say 6 months, put another 12,500. And then on closing, you have to put the rest of the amount that the bank actually needs.
Okay. So the first couple of payments, that's without like the bank and the mortgage. So you have to produce that yourself.
That's just cash.
Okay, cool.
That's
cool,
you really could come up with that cash any way you can. Because there's no it's not like the bank's in that at that point.
And that's for the builders.
Just for the builders at that point.
Okay, so you have your first home at 22 years old.
Yes, well, it wasn't a perfect transition. So because I did pre-construction, I made a big mistake. So unfortunately, they delayed the project for a while. And me being young and stupid at the time, I wasn't really paying attention to all the things that were needed to be perfect, like your credit at the time, making sure you have extra down payment money in case the bank needs extra down payment money and those things.
Okay.
So I sort of messed up those things right before the closing.
So you gave your first couple payments and then didn't realize, hey, bank might ask me for more than I bargained for?
Yes, that's what happened. So I was there thinking, okay, it's going to be okay. I was thinking, okay, I'll just put the 25,000. I'm good and great. I'll just get this condo. Yeah. But I wasn't keeping up with my credit score. So my credit score declined a little bit, and people don't know.
Around what?
I don't even know what it was, because back then I didn't really used to monitor how it's monitored now, but I know it did fall. I think I had a couple late payments on stuff. It was just like immaturity at the time. But it fell. And then at the time, I actually had a horrible mortgage experience with the bank because I was trying to get an answer is, can I get a mortgage with, it was a TD at the time, which I still bank with TDs, but we ain't cool when it comes to mortgages. But at the time was, so with TD, like I was chasing this mortgage broker down because at the time it was in question. He's like, oh, I don't know, your credit score slipped. I don't know how this is going to work. So I was like, hey, I was calling him. He wasn't picking up the phone. Yeah. And this is the thing what people have to know with banks. Banks are very ruthless when it comes to this business. So he told me like the last day before closing, I'm not getting a mortgage. So it went all bad. So because of that.
Last day before closing.
So
sorry. I have to cut you off a little bit. If something happens like that and you can't get the money before closing, do you lose all that money that you put in?
It could happen. So this is what could happen. They could take your deposit and then sell it somewhere else, but they would probably rather you keep it and fine you every day. So I think they were fining me $2,000 or something a day until I got a mortgage.
$2,000 a day.
$2,000 a day. Okay. So at the time I knew a mortgage broker that I used to go to all the way to elementary school. His name's Jordell. If you ever need to use him, give him a little bit of a shout out. So I called him up. I called him panicking. And he helped me figure things out. But because I had to put way more money down, so I had to take out a loan and pay that fine. So I was about $50,000 in debt off of my first property.
50K off rip.
50 down, about 24 at 50 grand in debt off of my first property. So this is where things sort of went sort of weird, in regards to that. So, because of that, now I'm just worried about paying down the debt.
Still at Chrysler,
but still a lot of debt. So I'm here just worried about paying it down, surfacing it down. So I rent out the property eventually, paying down the debt. I'm not even paying attention at all to the real estate market because I'm in debt. But that was actually the worst mistake I made because I don't know how. I just eventually ended up looking like, oh, what's a condo going for in Square One? Yeah. That was my first one. And then I looked and the returns were ridiculous. I think at that point it doubled in about three.
So you got the 250 and then it went to like 500?
Went to around 500. Yeah. So I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn, I wasn't paying attention to everything.
Yeah.
So, if I was paying attention to everything, then I probably could have reacted sooner and got another one. But once I did see that, then I went to go buy my first detached home, out in the city named Brantford.
Okay.
And that went well. Now I was really into.
So that's your second home.
That was my second home.
And that was by yourself too?
I was by myself as well. And then the third, and then I went eventually now to go buy a third home with a joint venture partnership with one of my friends.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. So you kind of missed out on an opportunity with your first home, right? So what would you have done differently in that, other than like pay attention to the market? What?
The biggest thing I would have done was really pay attention to all the mortgage process, because I think that was something that was a bit confusing at the time. It wasn't as, maybe it's more transparent now. I guess back then it wasn't as transparent, but I really would have paid attention just to the mortgage situation and making sure everything was as perfect as you can be.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice I could offer is if you're about to get a mortgage or going to get a mortgage, no new payments, no new car payments. Make sure your credit scores is high and keep your debt as low as you can. Before, after, do what you want.
Okay.
But before that application
those are
process,
big gems.
Yeah, but before in that process, keep everything as spotless as possible, because banks can pull things from you last minute, and that's not their problem. I mean, you could always go into like a private mortgage like what I got, but they're not as beneficial for you to have a private mortgage long term as a bank mortgage.
Okay, cool. So here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm hearing is that you feel that you messed up, right? But you could have been in a situation where you went to Guelph, been $50,000 in debt, came out of school, looked for a job in your field, and you don't have a house to leverage.
That's a good point. Yeah, a lot of people,
you know what I'm saying?
A lot of people would look at it like that. Maybe I'm just hard on myself when it comes to that type of stuff, but that's a good way of looking at it. So I'm not going to sit there and deny that. I just think like there was the opportunity, as you can see back then, though, was still easier back then than it is now.
Yeah.
And back then, I'll say like everyone used to say it was, oh man, it's risky. What you're doing is risky. Now it's actually become sort of popular, which is sort of unique. So from my standpoint, but I get exactly what you're saying. But it was also, I guess it was a mistake, but it was also a good learning lesson. I think it's taught me,
of course, especially at 24 too.
Yeah.
You got in early.
I got it really early. I got in really early, so I was lucky. I guess it was just by that book I really read, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Hi, cool.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the joint venture. Obviously, sometimes doing business with friends can be tricky. It doesn't have to be. How did that conversation come about?
It's a good question. I guess we've actually talked about doing joint ventures for a long time before it. It just never really ended up working out perfect. So now we finally formulated. We came to terms to just actually formulate and do it, because now we've seen the market was actually running up. So the big thing actually is we formed it. We formed the joint venture partnership in the middle of the pandemic. Okay. Actually, the pandemic was a golden age. That was another golden opportunity of investing that a lot of people didn't realize, because the interest rates were coming down. So now it's like you're getting free debt. Yeah. Free money, basically. You're not paying anything on that debt that you're getting. So we invested in another property during that time and get another pre-con. I like the pre-construction method, especially.
That's your strategy, pre-con.
I like pre-con. I am going to definitely venture into some new strategies coming up very soon, but pre-con's been all three of my properties before, just because it allows you to leverage time. So it's like you're leveraging your time and your money. You're stretching out your payments with everything, plus the appreciation of the markets going up while you're leveraging that. So for me, I think if anybody's really struggling to get into the market, people should look for great pre-construction deals. Okay. I feel like that's the smartest way to do it, because I think was it the second home? The third one I just did, I didn't really even have the money. I'm just honest. I just spent it on the other house. Right. So now I could budget for everything for myself and calculate it out like that, and then get the next home. Makes sense. To me, that's actually the smartest way for anybody to get into the market. Yeah. And if you're wanting to sort of play the appreciation game with the market, because everything gets stretched out longer, but you're still putting the same money down. Yeah. So now it's like,
it's time, like you said.
Right. So now when you walk into the property, your equity's higher. Off the bat.
Jeez, that's crazy. So even going with the joint venture and pre-con, that's even like I would say a little bit of an easier step, because now you're going half of the payments.
Half the payment. So that's another thing that I recommend to people. A lot of people are struggling with that. And you can make joint ventures. There's people I know with joint ventures with 4 people in one group. And to be honest, just drop a little tidbit. That is the real reason why the market is what it is today. Is there's a lot of joint ventures going on in the market.
So everything's getting scooped up and that driving those prices high.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of investors in the market, and people have grouped up together to make the market a lot higher than what it is. So a lot of people just wonder, why is the market so high? Is these foreign investors and whatsoever? Yeah, there are some foreign investors. There's probably not as much as there were before, but it's actually a lot of local people who've grouped up in these investment groups. And you buy one property, it's easy to get 2, 3, 4, 5. You take equity from one, and you just keep buying it. But if you're not in the market, you're not experiencing that at all.
True. So would you give everyone advice like, hey, like look for a joint venture partner right now?
I would say if there's someone you can really trust and work out things with, I would say go a joint venture.
How does the trust factor work? Like, are you guys both on, like, how does that work?
Like for us, we're both still on title. We're both on everything. But I have a deep trust with this person. So I know he's not going to mess me up like that. Because it can go bad too. Right. And if you have any trust issues, I would say to write everything out in paper contractually and everything like that. And also create an LLC. If you create an LLC, you're not as obligated as, if you just put your name on it per se. But those are the things I'd recommend if you're going to do a joint venture partnership with somebody, or hell, even try to convince your parents if you can to do a joint venture partnership. If they're noticing what goes on in the market too, they might oblige and say, oh, no, that's actually a good idea. This, my son or my daughter, they're serious. We could do a joint venture partnership and make some money. Yeah. Because any of our parents that own homes have made a lot of money through the homes as well.
100%. 100%. What's your next move with real estate?
My next move with real estate, I have 2 big things that I really want to get done as soon as possible, is to invest into the USA. Okay. And I say the next thing is to...
How do you do that? What's the process?
It's a long process. So I'm not going to say it's a long process, but it is a process I have to go over everything with. So the big thing is the accounting. and the taxing. So the tax process is a little bit different. So you sort of have to sit with an international accountant and know, you know, how you're going to get taxes. You're going to get taxed actually from both ways, which is US and Canada at the same point. So that's probably the most important step. And then the other challenge is the financing, because you are a Canadian citizen, there's very limited options for finding financing. But what I found with the financing is, okay, for a US property, you have to put 30% down as a Canadian citizen. But even with that, it's still significantly cheaper than what you would pay over here anyway, even with the currency difference and everything.
Yeah.
So I just think the value is a lot better over there. And the next thing, like I said, the next thing is then over here also as well is to get into multi-unit.
I was just going to ask
multi-unit properties. I've never exactly gotten into one exactly of yet, but I think I'm trying to get into one pretty soon, just because the cash flow is a lot better. And when it comes to real estate, you have cash flow and you have appreciation. It's hard
it's hard to fail like that.
No, so well, actually, what I'm saying is you have cash flow and appreciation. It's very hard to actually mix both. So you have to say which one do you want to go through. And what I'm just looking at the market, it's very, very inflated right now. And I feel like eventually we're going to have to go back into the cash flow methodology of real estate instead of this fast growing. You know, you get a property and you're making $500,000 off one property. I don't think that's going to be sustainable.
Okay, cool. So let's get into some stocks.
Stocks, yes.
You've been first of all, what's your style of trading?
Yeah, so I've tried many things in the stock market. The stock market for me has been the most emotionally toughest game.
What is it?
I've been in for sure. See, real estate's, if you don't like volatility, real estate's so much simpler. Yeah. In fact, sometimes I wonder if I should just put it all in real estate. But there are benefits in stock. So I tried everything from day trading to swing trading and to long-term investing. Yeah. So I would say with stocks, I guess you have to find out what you really like, what your style, what your risk tolerance is with stocks.
When you say what you really like, are you talking about in terms of how your emotions are set up?
How your emotions are set up, because it's really all based on your emotions.
Explain that.
Okay, so some people can handle different stuff than other people in the stock market, right? Yeah. So there's some day traders, they could day trade and be down 50 grand on the day trade. They're gonna go about their days like nothing happened, right? Like, you know what I mean? And then some people, like, they're gonna be in panic. So you have to almost say, okay, like, what can I actually emotionally work with? So when something goes bad, you're not in a state of panic.
Sweating.
Yeah. So I've tried them all. I tried day trading. I tried swing trading.
Swing trading's the short, like within like a week or something like that, or 4 days?
To month. So it's about a week to month time frame. And actually, I'll be honest. Now my style is sort of mixed currently at this moment between long-term investing and options. And with the options, I do a strategy called covered calls and cash secured puts. And what's that?
Explain those.
So covered calls is basically when you own 100 shares of a company. Yeah. But now you could trade. You could sell options against that stock you own.
So that's betting against the.
Sort of, yeah. You're sort of betting against it, but you're actually receiving a premium every single week for that. So that's what I've sort of found is the best thing, because it's a mix of long-term investing and it's a mix of being able to receive premiums every week. And that's what you sort of want from the stock market, is to receive cash flow every week. So that's currently right now sort of what I'm doing to generate consistent income from the stock market.
Okay, cool. See, I met a guy in May randomly at the park. Just random guy. I was talking to his wife and then we started talking, and then he gave me so much information about stocks, and I've been winning ever since. Like, just random guy. But he does long-term stocks and it hits. What do you think about the long-term game?
So that's what the options sort of are. It's a mix of like a long-term strategy and a short-term strategy. But he is right. Long-term, I've sort of found long-term is better, just because with short-term, you don't know what's going to really happen in the short term and the horizon.
Pandemic, wars.
Yeah, pandemic, wars. Like right now, you know, like let's say if you're in the market right now, you know, I'm like 20% down, drawdown in some stocks, which I'm in a really big position on one stock and it's 20% drawdown. Yeah, but because I know it's a long-term position, I'm not panicking. You know what I mean? Yeah. So these are the type of things that's better to be a long-term investor versus like if you're a short-term investor and you're just looking on the short-term horizon, you can get like screwed up, man, if you're trying to do these things, because you never know what's on the horizon. That's the problem with the stock market or any market if you really think about it.
Okay, cool. So where did this information or where did this knowledge come from? Because you dropped out of school.
I think, well, you know, in all honesty, I don't know where it really came from. I think I've always really just been a curious learner. I've always like learning.
Google, YouTube
University.
Books?
YouTube University is by far. I call it YouTube University because it taught me better than any school ever has. To be 100% honest with you, YouTube University. By far, you can learn anything off of YouTube. You know, maybe you have to still do more research after, but it can give you a great base knowledge with all these things. Like the option strategy, I never knew about that.
Yeah.
Like until 4 months ago, and I was shocked. I actually thought it was too good to be true.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I've been doing this the hard way the whole time. I could have just been buying and holding like Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And he's the one person who actually did use this strategy to accumulate his wealth. I could have been buying and holding and making a premium at the same time. Now I'm here trying to trade stocks and do this type of stuff and
all stressed
out. And And then, you know, sometimes I remember one time actually it was funny. I made good money that day.
Yeah.
I made good money doing a day trade.
What's good money?
It was about $3 grand
okay,
in the day.
In the day.
Yeah, the day. I made about $3 grand in the day on a day trade, but it was so stressful. I don't even know. I felt like I lost money because I was glued onto this screen, watching, you know, the ticks go up and down and everything. It was 8 hours straight. Remember, I was in a Starbucks sweating bullets, trying to just look at it as getting the $3 grand, and I got it, and I felt horrible. Which was odd. I know you think you win, you'd feel great, but I think I was just so glued onto that screen, like the whole day, and it was just tiring because you're mentally working, working mentally drained. So I tried that. So I tried, like I said, I've tried a lot though, but it's definitely been, out of all of them, it's been the mentally most toughest game out of them all. Because you got to sort of figure out what's good, because there's so many different things you could do in the stock market. You could short a stock, you do options in stock, you can go long, day trade, swing. So it's a very interesting market, to be 100% honest with you.
What's your biggest loss in the stock market?
Like unrealized or realized?
What's the difference?
Unrealized, until you sell, you never actually lose.
Oh yeah, exactly. So
unrealized loss, I would say right now, I guess. Well, you could probably say right now. The last few months I was down 25 grand American.
How do you feel about that right now?
It sucked. You know, I was gonna still get deported. You gotta get deported. Like it's definitely gone back up.
It's not a real loss.
It's not a realized loss. That was probably like the biggest. Oh wow, that was the biggest one. But I did go in quite heavy on that company.
Yeah.
So, but it's a long-term play, so I'm not even really nervous about it. The biggest, I think, quick loss I lost $2 grand in a minute one time though. Off a day trade. So I would
$2 grand in a minute.
In a minute. Yeah. That's day trade.
And the best one, the best day trading come up is $3 grand in a day.
$3 grand in a day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the thing with trading is tricky, right? Like I said, it's
emotion.
It's so emotional. It's so emotional.
Because I was watching one podcast, and literally they don't even really pay attention to like the news and whatever. They're just they have their own principles and strategies, and it's strictly off emotion.
It really is strictly off emotion. And if you can really master your emotion and detach your emotion from money, you can get so far from it. Now I haven't mastered that.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit there and lie like I have not mastered that. But if you can, I think the stock market's a great place for you. But I think that's really the training with the stock market. You'll understand the charting pretty easily. You'll even understand the cycles of the stock market pretty easily. The hard part about the stock market is mastering yourself. And money, because depends how your relationship is with money. Like I knew a guy at work, if he probably seen he was down like $500, he could lose it. Right now, I could look at my portfolio right now, and it might be negative 13 grand on the stock, and I'm not really.
You're not sweating. Yeah.
Just because that's how it is, right?
Can I say something?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you feel that people that get a lot more emotionally triggered from losses is because of the fact that they may have overinvested, like more than what they can handle? Do you ever feel like there's like a window in terms of how much you should be able to put into the market in regards to how much you actually have
like liquid
in your possession?
I think that's a good question as well. I think you always, now in the stock market, I think until you get to like a really high number, I would say even probably 7 figures in all honesty in the stock market, I think you should always have another income sources. Because if you just have one income sources off the stock market and that's how you're going to really just stressful. Eat purely, that's a different type of stress I think you always have to live under. So I think in that way, if you're over invested where you have nothing else and that you just put all your money into this thing and you're seeing this thing go down 20-30%, I think you're gonna really feel it more than, let's say, if you have things diversified or if you have other sources of income. True. To be 100% honest with you.
True. Mm-hmm. Well, talking about other sources of income, most people know you by your photography and videography skills.
Yeah.
Where does that come to play in all this? Where did it start?
That started, okay, actually, that's a really interesting question. So when I went, I like to travel a lot. Yeah. My goal is to actually go to about 50 to 75 countries before I die. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's actually a big goal of mine. I think at least, I haven't even counted, but I think at least between 12 to 15 I would get right now. All right. So anyway, so I booked a vacation to Dubai. And I was like, I can't go to Dubai and not get a camera. So that was where that came from. So I got a camera, and the next thing you know, I just sort of fell in love with photography.
University.
I never knew how to shoot manual. I never knew how to shoot with any lights. I never knew how to shoot with any of that type of stuff. Never did shoot video. That's all been through YouTube and tutorials. And I've been through a couple of workshops that were good for my learning, but that's pretty much mostly self-taught for the most part.
Okay, dope. And how many years have you been in the photography game now?
I think it's about 4.5 now.
Okay, 4.5. Still relatively like fresh or new and stuff.
Pretty new. Yeah, pretty new in the game.
Where are you at with it now?
In regards to
just like, do you still want to continue? Do you want to push more? Like, what are your future goals with it?
I think it's been a very interesting journey. It's definitely very interesting having a lot of clients and different things like that. I would love to be able to more scale it though into like a company instead of being like a self.
I see you doing the weddings and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the weddings, I'd love to be able to scale into a full-fledged company. And more be able to get out of the shooting and look at it from like a CEO type of position and a position like that. That's where I really want to go from it on that standpoint. Another standpoint I would actually like to be is I'd actually like to be the visual artist in the regards to selling like personal art on, like physical art, or maybe now even which is new NFTs. Now, I'm not really too familiar with the NFT space to just jump into it, but it's been something I've sort of been keeping my eye on and something I sort of would like to possibly explore in the future, because I just think that would be the best part of photography is actually creating art that how you specifically want to. And actually selling it. Because as you know, when you shoot with clients, they want things very specific. And that actually sort of skews some of the fun away from photography a little bit when you have to make it most of the fun from the photography, when you have to be able to make it like how the client wants to, right? So I think creative vision and creative control is sort of what keeps that passion going alive. So eventually, like I said, I'd love to get into that space, selling some type of digital art on some walls, or physical art on some walls, or just digital art. In the future, I'm sort of hoping to jump into that space.
Okay, dope. So earlier you mentioned the GOAT of books, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah.
What other books would you recommend?
10X by Grant Cardone.
Oh, that guy, he's my dog. Have you seen what is it called? What's the billionaire show? It's Undercover Billionaire.
Yeah. I watched that show.
Oh my goodness! You watched his version?
Oh yeah, I love Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone. I like Grant Cardone. He says a lot of, you take a lot of good advice from Grant Cardone.
Hell yeah.
From real estate just to the mindset. His mindset's like impeccable. He's like a Russell Westbrook of life. If you really take your basketball fan. If you're a basketball fan, you know what I mean. But he's like the Russell Westbrook of life when it comes to just life. And real estate wise, I've taken a lot of things from him as well in regards to how he scaled up his real estate from 3,000 to 3 billion at this particular point.
And he started with nothing. And now this is going to sound controversial. A lot of people might be like, what the hell does this guy talk about? Doesn't make sense. But I believe this too. I believe you should own something and rent it out and rent yourself. A lot of people don't believe in that. That's what I was going to, okay. So,
but I believe in that too.
That's a great saying, because I know that the place that you're living at now, you rent.
Yep.
Explain the thought process behind that.
Okay. Well, there's two different thought processes, right? So if I look at real estate just as a business, investing as a business. So I want to be able to scale my business up as quick as possible.
Okay.
Right. So if I have my primary home and I'm living in there, not say I've known people who do it, like they're able to scale out. Yeah. But I think it's a little bit more challenging to scale out, because when you're scaling out, if I'm taking out equity, I'm now adding debt, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm adding debt. So, I mean, you're still doing the same thing through if you're renting a property, but renting is actually cheaper than owning. People don't understand.
The mortgage on top of that.
You have the mortgage, you have all the property taxes, you have everything. Now, people are gonna say, well, you're still, if you're still renting and you own a property, aren't you paying that? Yes and no. So when things like property taxes, mortgage interest and everything, if you have that separated in an LLC and you have that separated in a business entity, a lot of that is a tax write-off. And then you could also go back into your name and your rent is a tax write-off. So these are totally two separated type of things that a lot of people don't understand why you want to do that. There is no tax write-off if I'm just a primary owner of my home. Everything I'm paying.
Yeah. Okay. So are you saying, help me grasp this. Are you saying that the place that you rent is technically part of your business? So you write that up. You write some things off.
That's a write-off, yeah. That's a write-off for me. That's a write-off for me. And then the property, you have that in a totally separate entity.
Yeah.
And that stuff is a write-off too. So the big thing is taxes, really, when it comes to these type of things, and being able to scale. Because if I just have one property, one is next to none. I don't really want just one of anything if you really think about it, because you're always just next to zero.
Yeah.
But with property, it's a thing you could scale up and scale aggressively. So really, most real estate investors that I know, like the heavy-handed ones, which I've met about 4, in my life, I think maybe 1 or 2 of them really live in their primary property. And if they do, that's not even their focus. Their focus is just accumulating more.
Yeah.
But I do believe a lot of people should really worry about building up their equity and their net worth to where it's a lot higher. And to make that higher is to be able to accumulate more properties at once than just have one.
Okay, makes sense. So you mentioned taxes. Can you tell me a couple ways that taxes have worked for you?
Well, taxes just work well when you're able to write off things in your benefit. Now with real estate, it's probably one of the best.
What type of things are you writing off right now?
With
taxes.
I don't know if I can. I don't know. Uncle Sam is gonna say all that.
Okay,
but
you can leave that alone. You can leave that alone.
You know what I mean? But there's certain write-offs you could write off with the property. With paint or furniture or anything. You could say that's for a tenant. I'm not saying I do that, but I'm just saying that's something you can do. And then obviously if you're renting a place, you could say that's a separate write-off as well. So you could do those things.
Okay, cool. And for the 2 other properties that you have right now, are they being rented out or?
So one's almost in completion. So that one's actually not even finished yet.
Oh, still.
And then the other ones are rented out.
Okay, dope. So where does the 9 to 5, where does the importance of the 9 to 5 come in all of this? Because during this whole journey, you've had your 9 to 5.
The 9 to that was, and to be 100% honest, that was hard to juggle all those things. Because I think there was times
you're doing a lot,
working probably 70 hours a week.
Doing all this,
like, between like, you're trying to manage stocks, real estate, photography, all at once, and you have to manage a job. Sometimes it was just like, go. But the 9 to 5 was really, I'll be honest, the 9 to 5 is great for real estate. That's really what it was there for. The 9 to 5
paperwork and stuff like that.
Paperwork, yeah. It's just a lot easier to get a mortgage. Not saying it's impossible to get a mortgage if you just are self-employed or a business. It's a lot easier to get a mortgage though when you just have a job.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then it was also good just to fund some of these things like photography.
Yeah.
And help out with the stock market. I said, there's a drawdown in the stock market.
You have that consistent cash flow
coming in from the job. So it's sort of like you have to create like a wealth triangle for yourself.
Yeah. Explain that. Well, explain or dumb it down, the wealth triangle.
Well, I feel like it's like a triangle sort of like this, right? So you have to have 3 different points, different points of attack. So my top point would be real estate.
Yeah.
Second point, you could probably say now is business. Second point is stocks, but they're all intertwined together and they're all there to do one thing, is to accumulate more wealth.
Yeah.
But I think when you have those like 3-4 different things under your belt and you do good at them, it's very good to be able to add to your wealth in that way.
Wow. So you're doing it all. Literally.
I wouldn't say it all, but I'm doing a few things. I wouldn't say it all.
You're doing it all. So, okay. So Where does someone start first? Now that you're at this point in your journey, do they start with the real estate? Do they start with the stocks, or does it matter? Depends on obviously their financial situation, or what do you like even the 9 to 5? Do you think people should, because obviously entrepreneur is sexy right now, right? So do you still believe people should be looking for their 9 to 5s to fund these certain things?
I think personally, if I'm just looking for straight wealth building, real estate in Canada per se I would start there. I guess that's meaning like me being progressive, defensive aggressive. Yeah. I think real estate is defensive aggressive.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's hard. I'm not saying anything can't go wrong, because when you take any financial risk, something can always go wrong. Yeah. But it's harder for something to go wrong in real estate. So you won't necessarily lose money. You know, when you do entrepreneurship, you're probably going to lose money when you start out. Mm-hmm. Stocks, you're going to lose money. That is your teacher. That's like your tuition going to stocks, losing money. So these type of things, I'd say you're going to lose money first. With real estate, you're not really going to lose money as long as you don't do anything too insane or have like a nightmare tenant or something, or just do like a stupid situation. Because in fact, if I really look at it, the biggest losses that I had, just like when you asked me before, real estate initially was the biggest one. Yeah. But it still recovered and made it all back. Way more. So I would say real estate, I would personally start with try to get one property under your belt at least. Okay. And then, build up some equity. And then when you want to take the chances with other stuff, I would actually go there. But everybody has different personalities. So I've known people who have, just started a business, and the business went from 0 to $1 million in under a year. Jeez. So I guess it's also just depending on how your personality sort of is and what works best for you. But for me, I always like being defensive aggressive. Okay. Like at the top. And then the other ones are, base it down. Okay, I could be a bit more aggressive now in building up this business, and I could be aggressive with stocks, knowing, okay, if I have a drawdown, it's not the end of the world, because at the top is real estate. Okay, dope. So what are some immediate future plans? In regards to
everything.
Oh man, there's a lot of plans. I would say with real estate, just try to add more. My goal is to, like I said, get at least one American property hopefully this year. Yeah. And then hopefully try to get another property in a smaller city. And actually, that's another piece of advice I could offer is, a lot of people are looking into these main cities right now, like the Mississaugas or whatever.
Is that done?
I wouldn't say it's done, but when things have gained so much, it's harder for them to gain so much more. So I wouldn't really be, if you're going to look for a property in these big cities, I like, it can't happen. I guess our market's crazy anyway, but I wouldn't expect astronomical gains over the next decade. Yeah. But I think a lot of people should look into these smaller cities, look into the Sudburys, look into the Calgarys, look into these smaller cities that a lot of people aren't even really thinking about.
They're sleeping on right now.
Yeah. A lot of people are sleeping on, but they're very affordable for you. You can still get a house for $200,000 in Sudbury. Yeah. That should be, hopefully that's a good tidbit people look for right now. Yeah. So people are like, oh man, these houses are $1 million. No, go to Sudbury. You don't have to live there. Yeah. But why not rent it out? You get some equity. Eventually, if you want to even move into it as a primary property, you sell that, you got equity, and you got somewhere else new. But there's still a lot of possibilities out there in the real estate market. But I would say look to add more real estate for sure. Hopefully a couple more properties. Okay. US, maybe one Canadian. I guess photography, just keep growing as an artist. Hopefully get into the digital art game. Cool. And stocks it's just keep learning and keep checking those emotions. Keep checking those emotions. I guess develop emotional intelligence. Yeah. So I guess those would be the 3 goals in the 3 different areas, I would say, for sure.
Big question for me. Mm-hmm. When are you gonna start teaching?
I don't know.
You need to start teaching.
When am I going to start teaching? I know.
Courses, master courses.
I know.
You need to start teaching. I know. Literally, because for me, I look for teachers that have done what they're teaching. Mm-hmm. You're doing it.
Mm-hmm. I should. Maybe that's something I'm underestimating.
No, I should. No. By the time you're on this podcast again for part 2, I want a course.
You want a full-fledged course? I want a
full-fledged course.
Well, to me, like, I didn't want to. I think I'm doing like well in real estate, and I'm getting my footing in stocks for sure. Mm-hmm. I would say before I definitely teach anything, I would definitely, like, for me, for real estate, I would want I would want to have no less than 5 properties before I teach anybody anything. I know that's maybe a mental thing I'm putting up.
But hey, I don't have one.
I know what you're saying. But I'm just saying, like, I would like to have that because I feel like you should almost be a master at your games.
You are.
I'm not a master. I know people.
Me?
No. I'm not. I know a guy who's 3 years younger, and he bought and flipped about 20 to 30.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, that to me, that's a guy.
That's a
guy who should be able to teach. For me, I could give out great tips. Yeah. I feel, but I wouldn't feel like I'm a teacher as of yet.
Could we start with the tips on
tips? Yeah, I can lend out tips, but I wouldn't say I'm a full-fledged teacher or anything like that. But I could definitely, I would say, hopefully, if I could keep attaining more real estate and stuff like that, eventually I would teach. And who knows? I think, like, you know, this is something that, you know, maybe I'm hope I can speak into existence. Being able to help the Black community as a corporate entity invest into real estate. That'd actually be a big thing.
That's huge.
Because there's a lot of corporate entities that are investing into real estate heavy.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of Black owned
representatives,
corporate owned entities. A lot of times we're just trying to do stuff as individuals, and you really cannot go that far as individuals. But if you can do it as a corporate entity, sky's the limit. You know what I mean?
That's why you need to start teaching from now.
Start teaching
because remember, like, okay, the course, one thing, okay, but at the end of the day, I feel like communication is the highest form of getting paid.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, let's back it up. Like, let's say you did do a course. One, it's evergreen. You make it once and you sell it forever. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like sky's the limit with your gains and money. You know what I'm saying? If you know it, you sell it.
That's a good point.
You know?
Something to think of, I guess. Something to think of.
You have it, bro.
You're convincing me.
Yeah.
something to think of. All
right, cool. So I'm gonna end it off. I ended off the same way every single interview. I ask every guest, what is the best advice that you've gotten, and what's the worst advice you've gotten? And you don't have to name any names, of course.
Best advice that I've gotten, actually, maybe before I even started in the first property. I bet this actually is funny. At the time, this is rare. Another Black gentleman. He was an investor. Actually at Meadowville Town Center, totally random. And I don't know how we got talking about these future plans that I sort of wanted to do. But he then said, hey, you know, if you really want to make it in life, you can't think inside the box. You have to always think outside the box, because whoever thinks inside the box, they get trapped there. Ooh. I've always remember that. You told me that. Yeah, that was a bomb. So that was about 9 years ago. I never forgot that. I wish I could meet that guy and see where he's at now. But he was the first, especially Black guy I really ever seen with the multiple properties and things like that. So that was an inspiration. And I'd say worst piece of advice. I can't really sit there and pinpoint, but when people try to say when people try to steer you away from taking risk, you should always take risk. Without risk, you won't learn anything actually in this
Nothing.
Yeah. So you have to take risk. So anybody who's discouraging you from taking a risk, don't listen to them. Okay. Now, of course, there's smart ways to take risks, and I do agree with that. Don't just join the stock market and say I'm going to put all my money in here, maybe because you don't know everything. That's stupid. Yeah. But you should always take a risk, because you won't learn anything without taking risks. I've learned so much about myself, and even people around me by taking risks. Who's really there for you, who's not there for you. You learn, what can I handle? How could I push myself further? All these type of things. Because I would say pretty much almost everything was a risk. When, you know, from the real estate at the time, I didn't know if it was going to work. Stocks is for sure a risk. Stocks, and then film photography. Yeah. That's, you know, you
just picked up the camera, said, let's go.
Up the camera and let's go. I still don't know where it's going to take me to this day. So I would say anybody who's discouraged you from just taking a risk, don't listen to them. Just make sure you try to plan out your risk taking as smart as possible.
Brilliant, bro. Well, thank you for being on the show. It's been dope, but can you let people know where they can find you?
Just find me on Instagram, The Visual Artist. Also find me on TikTok, The Visual Artist as well. And those are the two platforms you can find me on.
Okay, let's get it. Thank you for being... Oh, wait. Before we end this off, is there anything that you want to say that I missed out on?
No, I don't think there's anything.
I think we touched everything. It was a packed interview.
I hope it was, man.
Let's get it. Episode 6, Black is the New Rich.